Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Coffee with Katy. I have my enemies to lovers mug because today is kind of a fun video. It is a collab with Beccie from Bex Reads, and she's doing this collab for an A to Z romance book challenge. So essentially you're making, all the creators that are participating are making a list from A to Z, and it has to just have some type of romance book in it, and you make a list of whatever you want. It could be like the titles, it could be anything. What I'm gonna do with this is I'm gonna use tropes. So I'm gonna use books that have romance and they utilize these tropes. Thank you again, Beccie, for inviting me to collab, and I think it's gonna be a really fun challenge. But let's just get into it. So like I said, I'm gonna do romance tropes A to Z. So I will give the caveat that all of these books have romance in them, but not all of them may be just romance books, if that makes sense. Maybe that's a little bit of a cheat, but we're going with it. So for the letter A, I went with age gap romance. And for this one, the age gap isn't vast, but I did Cruel Winter with You by Ali Hazelwood. This is a holiday short story. The age gap is that Jamie is best friends with this girl, and they've been best friends in high school, and you kind of see their life together as best friends, and it's her little brother, Mark. So there's this age gap of like he likes his older sister's friend. And it goes back and forth, but they're grown-ups at this point that you're reading the story, and it just gives you like timeline shifts and like flashbacks and stuff like that. But there is a little bit of an age gap. It's not like a 20-year age gap, but I did think that it was cute. And I really liked this. I thought that the romance was really good. I thought the book was really well written, even though it's like 70 pages. So I would say if you haven't given this a shot, do. It is a holiday romance, but I would say this is more winter. It's about getting snowed in than it is Christmas. That is A. And then for B, I went with Best Friends to Lovers as the trope. And the book I chose for this is Fireborn by Rosaria Munda. This is not a romance book, but it is a Dragon War college, basically. It's a society where the dragon riders are military, and there's these two best friends that grew up in an orphanage together from opposite sides of the spectrum. One was a failed rebellion leader. So like one was the kid of a regime that has been overtaken, and one was an orphan and kind of like a rebel in the midst of the war. So they're both like on opposite sides of the spectrum, but they were both orphaned as children, and they grew up together like in this orphanage, and they go to the school together. They're both military dragon riders. And so it's really interesting because they are friends to lovers because they did grow up together, but their beliefs and the things that they have to struggle with is very interesting. So I would definitely include this because they do have a little bit of a romance trope, but it's not like, I wouldn't go into this hoping that it's going to be heavily romantic. But overall, the politics in this are unmatched. It talks a lot about gray areas, and it's like there's no good choices. It's only choices that will harm one party or the other. And the way that the author handles that is really, really interesting and different and really good. Like you can see both sides of the coin. I don't know. Really good. Check it out. Then for C, I did Competition. So for this one, I chose The Rose Bargain by Sasha Payton Smith because this is kind of like a Bachelor-esque type of a romance. I've talked about this book and done a whole review on this book, so I feel like I don't have to stay on here long. But the main character is entered into a competition to win the Fae Prince's hand. She is a human, so it's her and like 24 other girls or something that enter into this competition, and whoever wins will win the prince's hand in marriage. And I loved this book. It was really, really good, and it has that competition aspect. And in this world, you trade a rose bargain, so you meet with the Fae Queen. You say, I would like perfect teeth, and she says, okay, give me your finger, and you exchange your finger for perfect teeth. So there's like some magic involved, but also just like a bachelor competition situation. It was really fun. For the letter D, I did Duke or Lord Heroes. And for that one, I chose A Lady's Guide to Scandal by Sophie Irwin because there is a couple of different titles involved, but one of them is a Duke or Lord aspect kind of a thing titled, but I'm pretty sure there's a Duke in here. And this one's really cute. This is about a woman who was married very young off to this older gentleman, and he dies and leaves her his estate, which is like unheard of as a woman. So she doesn't have to worry about money, but she also has to kind of tread carefully because if she's in scandal, she will forfeit the fortune, and she is kind of finding herself and figuring out who she wants to be while potentially trying to court kind of this lost love could have had, but married this guy instead, the one that died. And then maybe makes friends with a rakish duke. loved this book. Will read anything this woman writes. And for enemies to lovers, there's always such good options for this that I went ahead and chose Fourth Wing. This is my German edition of Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. Enemies to lovers that comes in here, if you don't know, is with Violet and Xaden. Violet is the daughter of a general, and Xaden is the son of a, again, failed rebellion leader who tried to rise up and started a rebellion but was crushed, and all of the children of the rebellion and their rebels were punished, and the children are forced to join the military as penance. They hate each other. They think they're both out to kill one another, and there's some tension there, and it is very fun, and it's a Dragon War college as well. This is romantasy. Fireborn is not, but it's like YA political. But if you haven't read Fourth Wing, give it a shot. For F, I chose Forbidden Love, and with that, I chose One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. The reason I chose Forbidden is because in this story, the magic system is that there used to be this really cool magic system, but this king bartered away certain things with this magical being, and in return, the being gave him these set of like tarot card type magics. But with magic, there's a cost, and it kind of tainted everything, and it went south really fast and was corrupted, and it became this mist. And the mist in the wood will like drive people insane and give them magic that is really draining and dangerous. And anybody that is said to have magic is immediately killed by the new reigning king and the guard, the castle guard and stuff, the soldiers, So our main character, Elspeth, by accident has some magic. It's very well hidden, and it only comes out every so often, and it is like in her head, so it's not very obvious, so she's never been caught as being magical, but she ends up getting tangled with the captain of the guard, and by any logic, if they were to get together, that would be forbidden because she's magical and he's supposed to eradicate magic. There's a lot more into the story than that, but I did pick this book for that trope, and I've really, really, really loved this duology so much. The magic system was so cool. And then for G, I chose Grumpy Sunshine, and for this trope, I picked Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Maher. If you know, you know. This is a book about a villain who's like a storybook villain almost, who wants to like take down the king by any means necessary, and he's got like a creepy castle and staff that do his bidding. He runs into this poor girl and is impressed by her like quick thinking, and so he offers her a job as his assistant, and she is like the most sunshiny, bubbly, fun, cute person, and he's just like this grumpy villain that kind of has a soft spot for her, and they work together, and it's kind of like an office setting, which is really fun and cute. But yeah, for sure, this one for Grumpy Sunshine. Check it out. I love this series. I think some people want it to be dark, and it's not dark, but it's very good. For H, I did Hate to Love, and for this trope, I chose The Ever King by L.J. Andrews. This is a fae book. Both of the characters in this are fae. One is earth and one is sea. And as you can see here, it's a pirate story. So there's a really cool ship, kind of like the Flying Dutchman in Pirates of the Caribbean. The story with them is that they're both prince and princess from the sea and the earth kingdoms, but they are separate and they are enemies because there was a war and they were at each other, and the sea fae lost, and they've been like ostracized, and there's been a magical barrier put around the earth fae's kingdom. And so they're like mortal enemies, will do anything to kill each other kind of a thing, and he ends up kidnapping her and taking her away so that he can get some leverage on the king of the earth fae lands. Really, really good, especially if you want like pirate themed fae romance. Really cool. I loved the pirate elements of this. And then for I did Insta Love, and for this one we're going way back OG to City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. This was one of the first fantasy books that I read when I was like getting back into fantasy and getting into even this world. Like I read this before I started a booktube channel, and I was sucked in. I loved this book, City of Bones, loved it. The rest of the series, besides like book 5 and the last one, I was like, meh. But I did love this book. It really sucked me in, and I was very intrigued. And there is insta love in this. The two main characters, Clary and Jace, meet, and they're just like hard eyes. Love, never gonna meet anybody else like you. But I will say this is just kind of like one of those OG YA fantasy series, so if you're curious about it, I would say give it a shot. It's about demon hunters, which is why I wanted to read it in the first place, and I do like the other books that she has written. some more than others, but I think there's a cult following of this for a reason, even if this wasn't my favorite series, but absolutely insta-lovey. So beware. And some other kind of tropes that I don't love. And for the letter J, I chose the trope jealousy. And I picked Powerless by Lauren Roberts for this. I picked it because I think there's some jealous elements of Kai, who ends up kind of liking Peyton, but he doesn't really know her backstory and that she's actually powerless. And I think there's some jealousy involved as you go in. It may not be like toxic jealousy, but he just gets jealous and you can see it, and you can see him reacting to other people giving her attention, other people potentially falling for her and giving her attention. So I think there is some jealousy in this. I don't think it's super hardcore, but I think with most romanticies you're gonna have elements of jealousy, and so I don't think it's a stretch to say that this is. But this is a world where most people have powers, they have abilities, and if you are powerless, you're kind of seen as a like plague on society, and you're gonna just weaken the bloodline. So that's the rhetoric that has been preached, and the main character Peyton is powerless, but she's kind of like faking an ability. And the prince runs into her, finds her in like a market or something, and then she is invited into this competition, which is like the Hunger Games, except not as life and death, or shouldn't be as life and death, and she doesn't know how she's going to survive without abilities. It's very fun. I slept on this for a little while, even though I really wanted to read it, and I ended up really enjoying it. For their letter K, the trope that I chose was kidnapped heroine, which is a little bit dicey of a trope, I know, but it's done really well in this book. Just take my word for it. That is Holland the Soulless by Denali Day. I really need to continue this series because this is the Dokiri Bride series, and they fly on wyverns, and I really, really liked this a lot more than I thought I was going to, and I think the author just did this trope really well, and it's just so good. And there's like a whole series that I haven't read of all the brothers. Anyway, this one. So essentially the Dokiri, like I said, they fly on wyverns, but they're warriors that fly on wyverns, and they are able to, in their culture, they're able to fly, and once they're like deemed worthy, they can pick a bride. And that literally means picking anyone. So like you see a woman off the street, nabs her. Obviously they're like, this is like medieval time, but that's basically what they do. They just find one and they're like, yep, this is the one. And in this one, he flies and he's trying to find this woman, and he plucks her out of the forest, and he's like, you have to give me like a certain amount of time to decide if you want to stay with me or not. And she's like, you're insane. But the more time passes, the more maybe this isn't as crazy as she thought it was going to be. Liked it a lot more than I thought I would. You would think I wouldn't like something like this, but I do. For L, I used the trope love triangle, and one love triangle, this was hard actually, because there's a couple of instances where I feel like I've seen a love triangle done really well, and this is more of a love triangle that both people are you're torn on who you wanted to root for. Like some fandom wanted this person, some of the fandom wanted the other person. And that's kind of why I picked this, but I also picked it because I really loved both of the ends of the triangle, if you will. Both of the male ends of the triangle. And for this one, I picked Legendary by Stephanie Garber. This is book 2 in the Caraval series, so just know that going into it if you read Caraval and you stopped. But this is one of my favorite series of all time. If you've been on this channel for a while, you know that. And there is some characters that are introduced in this, and it also shifts perspective. So the first one is following a different sister, and this is following the second sister, and the love interest that didn't come around with it. It's so good. I loved this book. This was like a turning point for me in the series, but I also loved finale. But there's a really good love triangle in here with a couple of the characters. I'm trying not to spoil anything, but also I have to be a little bit spoily to tell you what it's about. But in this world, in the first book, there's a game called Caraval, and when you play the game, there's like magic involved, like actual magic, and that's the only time you can really experience magic in this world. And everything, it's like, remember, it's only a game, like it's not real, but it kind of is real. And if you win, you get a wish, and the sisters go to enter after some things go down. But then Scarlet, the older sister, finds out that her sister Tella, her younger sister Tella, was kidnapped, and she is the prize. So she has to find her sister in order to win, or else hope she doesn't die. Love this series so much. For the letter M, I picked Marriage of Convenience, and the book I chose for this, it's a little bit spoilery, and I'm sorry, but I don't know how else to like explain that to you sometimes. but it is What the River Knows by Isabel Ibanez. And essentially the characters in this do a marriage of convenience because it gives her as a woman more rights at this time. I'll just leave it at that. But you're following a girl who wants to go to Cairo, Egypt, because she's from another part of the world, and she's trying to figure out what happened to her parents. Her parents kind of like went missing. They were pronounced dead, and she doesn't think that they're dead. And also they're part of like some archaeological / treasure hunting situation. And it's very mummy vibes and very fun. I really enjoyed this duology a lot, and that is a trope in it. So if that's one you like, try it out. For the letter N, I picked the trope near-death experience or new adult romance, either one you want to go with, but near-death experience. And for that, I picked Quicksilver by Callie Hart. This is a really interesting book. It's got alchemy magic, which is really cool and different. And the main character basically ends up stealing something, ends up getting caught by the guard because it is illegal. She's kind of like a peasant, and her punishment for her crimes is death. And so they go to kill her, and in the midst of this, Faye comes through this Quicksilver pool that the character accidentally activated, and he brings her into his world and saves her life. And things go from there. But this is a very fun Fae romantasy with a lot of interesting alchemy magic and vampires. So if that sounds interesting, give this one a shot as well. And for O, I had to do my favorite trope, one of my favorite tropes ever, which is the one bed trope. And there's so many books that I could use this on as well, but I decided to go back to like an OG again, a beloved, an OG, one that everybody will understand. And that is A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. I love this book. I love the ACOTAR series. Maybe not the rest of her books necessarily, but I love this series. And this trope is in the second book. The first one is A Court of Thorns and Roses, as I'm sure you know, but there is a one-bed situation, and that's all you need to know. It's one of the turning points. I love it. I feel like I don't even have to say anything more about this book, but there you go. For the letter P, I chose Paranormal. For a paranormal romance book, I can't find my copy at the moment, but I chose Phantasma by Kylie Smith. This is a very interesting book. This is like if you wanted Caraval to be a lot darker and way more romantic. So this girl enters a competition to save her sister that enters in the same competition of this magical house, but it's kind of like demon-esque. It's very dangerous, and a lot of people die in this competition, but if you win, you get a wish. And people are very desperate and like bloodthirsty for this competition to win to get this wish. And there's paranormal elements with like demons and ghosts and all kinds of stuff. I loved it. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, but I read it and really, really enjoyed it, probably because I also like Caraval. And it kind of surprised me in a lot of ways. I thought I might like it, but maybe not a lot, but I ended up really, really enjoying it. And I'm excited for book 2. And then for Q, I picked a quirky heroine trope. And for that one, I chose Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood. I've talked about this book recently, but the main heroine is very quirky. She has like brightly colored hair and piercings, and I remember she has tattoos. I don't think she has tattoos, but she does have a lot of piercings. She really likes Star Wars, and she dresses really fun. She doesn't really care what people think about her in that regard, and it makes her kind of quirky and really, really fun. And I really enjoyed this couple out of all of this series. I've enjoyed this one the most. She's quirky. For the letter R, I chose the trope Reformed Rake. And the book I chose for this trope is A Rogue of One's Own by E.B. Dunmore. This is one of my favorite books ever, and I love the League of Extraordinary Women series by E.B. Dunmore. And in this one, you're following, they knew each other like as children, but they grew apart and hadn't seen each other for a very, very long time. And he is a rake with a reputation, and he was in the military and all kinds of stuff, and he's like gorgeous. And she is more of a like spinster and kind of ostracized from society because of her beliefs in women's rights and her work in the women's suffrage movement, feminist. But that is very, very odd in this day and time. And I love it. I loved the interactions that these two have. It's funny, it's heart-wrenching, it's romantic, it's just so good. And the feminist elements she talks about are very near and dear to my heart. It makes me tear up thinking about it. I love these books so much, but I love this one particularly. This one's my favorite out of all of them because of Tristan. He's the best. And then for S, I chose Slow Burn as the trope. And of course, this could be a lot of different books as well. but I also went OG and went with A Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare. This is the book 1 in the Infernal Devices series. This is my favorite Shadowhunter series. It is so good, and it has some romance and some just like the characters are just so well written. It is so funny. The romance has tension and slow burn and all kinds of things, and essentially the main character has this belief. He's kind of like standoffish in this belief that he's never going to find love, and so he just doesn't even try. He doesn't want love, and he's kind of like attracted to a girl that comes into their life, and she's got some mysterious origins, and they're not really sure what's going on with her, and she's attracted to him, but he's pushing her away. It's so good, guys. And it's Demon Hunters, remember that. Demon Hunters and all of that going on. This series is so good. If she wrote all of her series like this, I would be obsessed, but just this one for me. For the letter T, I chose Torn Between Two Lovers, which kind of feels like a love triangle, but I also feel like a love triangle is more, one of them is usually ahead of the other one. And for a torn between two lovers, I feel like they can't really decide. And for this trope, I chose the book These Hollow Vows by Lexi Ryan. This is a duology I really, really enjoyed. I thought it was really, really good and interesting. She's got like some shadow magic, which is cool. And it's a woman going into a fae world. And it's kind of like a marriage competition as well. But it's a little bit like The Bachelor. But I would say that is pitched in the book, but that's not a huge element of the book. So I wouldn't go into it hoping for just that content. But essentially she's going in and she's trying to win the prince's hand for a king, the Shadow King of the rival court, the Unseelie court, because her sister was taken and they're telling her that she will not be harmed if she can win the prince's heart. But then there's a Unseelie fae that doesn't seem as bad as the rest, that is like that has befriended her and is kind of trying to tell her different sides of the story, potentially, than the Seelie court, and she's not really sure who to go with. And I really enjoyed this duology very much. It's dramatic, it's fae, it's romantasy, it's got magic and politics and betrayal. Give it a shot. For the letter U, I picked the trope Unrequited Love. And I feel like that is that is a trope, right? But I feel like that's an interesting one because unrequited love in a romance book, that's going to change. And I was just kind of like in my head thinking about it. But for this one, I actually chose a book that I read a long time ago, and that is Rule by Jay Crownover, if I'm butchering that last name. But this is book 1 in the Marked Men series. And like I said, I read this a long time ago, and I actually never intended to pick up another one of these books, but I think I've come a long way in reading romance, so I might actually try them again sometime. But essentially the two main characters, the female main character grew up as best friends with his brother, and he hated her. He absolutely hated her, treated her like trash, hated her, and he had his reason, and she was kind of like the stuck-up preppy honor student, and he was more of a rebel, and now they're adults, and his brother has since passed away, and she's still like a pre-med student in med school, like doing very well for herself and in kind of the elite society, and he's still a rebel and still kind of like the outcast of society. He's heavily tattooed and pierced and works in a tattoo shop, and they still hate each other. Like, she kind of likes him and always has, but he's not giving her the time of day and really does not care. But then potentially that could flip at some point. So it was fun. I would say if that sounds interesting to you, you should give it a shot. I know they did like a movie recently, but I don't really know how you can watch it. And then for the letter V, I chose the trope vampire romance. And while I could say a lot of different things, like Twilight, which was a big thing for me growing up, I decided to actually go with For Blood and Ash. Even though I'm not the biggest fan of this book, I think it's kind of interesting to paint it as a vampire romance, because that's not really what you know about it necessarily going in. And maybe that's a spoiler, but it's been out for a while and I think people know. I have not finished the first 3 books in the series, and I don't think I'm not sure I could catch up and finish the series at this point. I'm gonna give the 3rd one a shot, and if I don't like it, I'm just gonna end it there, because I feel like there's aspects of the first 2 books that were interesting, but then it just kind of kept losing my interest during the story, and then it would do like some crazy cliffhanger. And this one, you're following Poppy, who is the main female character, and she's kind of in this society that is really abusive and makes her like wear a veil because she's supposed to be pure and all these things and not be touched and not be looked at. And she's kind of like set aside for this purpose, of this like religious purpose. But she's potentially slowly finding out that this is corrupt and it's not exactly what she thinks it is and what she believes it to be. and she's kind of swept away in different situations, and there may be vampires involved. For the letter W, I kind of stretched this a little and said the trope wanted, as in kind of like wanted dead or alive, wanted by the law. And for this one, I chose the book The Devil of Dublin by B.B. Easton. In this is a mafia romance, but it's more of I think it's a different type of mafia romance, because the mafia elements are not super prevalent until the end, and he's kind of like, in his interactions with her, he's not really in it until later when he's trying to like keep them both alive. But this was like a really good book. I was kind of blown away that I liked this as much as I did. It talks a lot about abuse, which is very dark, so beware of that. But he is an Irish man that is kind of involved in a lot of things. He's called the Devil of Dublin because he was deemed to be the devil because he was raised in an abusive situation and had problems, and they become friends as children, and then she visits Ireland every summer and looks forward to playing with him and kind of thinks he's a fairy, and they become, like I said, they become childhood friends, and they meet each other every summer until something happens and she doesn't come back, and he has like this grudge against her, and then thinks that they're not gonna mesh, not gonna get back together, and then she comes back to Ireland for her grandfather's funeral, and things go from there. And then for X, this was a little bit hard for me to pick a trope, but an idea I got was XOXO, which is like cutesy, hugs and kisses, adorable, sweet kind of a trope. So we're using that as a stretch, and I picked Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams for this because this was such a sweet romance. It's cute, it's funny, it's adorable. It's more fade to black, so it's not as spicy, so I decided that this would fit that prompt perfectly, and I really, really love this book. It's set in a small town in Kentucky. He is a tattooed bodyguard. She is a sweet, cute, like innocent, protected child, protected like youngest child, not actually a child, she's an adult, that runs her own flower shop, and it's very sweet, very cute, very enjoyable. It's very flirty. They like fake date kind of, so she can learn how to flirt because she wants to date. It's very cute. And then for Y, I chose the trope Young Love. And for this one, I picked Dragons and Dating by Christi Boyce. I've been talking about these books a lot, but this is a D&D YA romance. It's very cute, and it's very like young lovey, and like, oh, we can't date because what will happen to our friend group. And the two main characters, I've talked about this book so much, I feel like I don't even have to say anything, but the two main characters, one of them is she's moving to this town to start over because of some falling out she had with her friends, and wants to join a D&D group but is afraid of the exact same thing happening again. The boy is in this D&D group, but they have this rule that they're not supposed to date, but they kind of like each other, so drama. And then last but not least, the letter Z. For this one, I picked the trope Zombies, and I picked the book The Bonesmith by Nikki Palpretto. This is not a romance book per se, but there is romance in this. And she's a bonesmith, but it's more of necromancer magic and these like bones, these like walker bone things, and there's different levels of them and different aspects of it where they can be reanimated or just be like creatures themselves. And that magic system is really interesting, and it kind of is akin to a zombie. So that's the one I'm using for this. You can tell like the cover is just so cool. And the magic system is really interesting with the bone magic, with the necromancy. There's also a little bit of enemies to lovers because she is part of the like bonesmiths and he's part of these like metal smiths. I can't remember what they're called right now, but he can control metal. And that's a really cool thing too, but they're like enemies, like mortal enemies, and they have to work together because of some betrayal and some shady stuff going down politically. And it was really good. It was a good duology. Would recommend. It's only a duology, which is cool, but this is like a YA kind of action-adventure book, but there is a little bit of elements of romance. Well, that is everything for this A to Z book romance challenge, trope edition for me. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, but make sure to go ahead and head over to Becky's channel. If you haven't subscribe to her, but also check out the playlist of all of the other contributors to this tag. I'm looking forward to watching them as well. But as for now, that is it for today's video. Please like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I will see you next time. Stay safe and caffeinated. Bye.